and welcome to today's podcast. My name is Jenny. I'm a tropical Western astrologer, and I use whole sign house system to explain the cosmos. So today we're going to take a look at the full moon in Gemini that's happening on December 15th at 23 degrees. We'll go over the astrology of this particular full moon, and I'm also going to talk about what it's like to have a Gemini moon natally. What does the energy mean? And then we're going to go into a all signs forecast to see how this full moon is illuminating your natal birth chart. So first and foremost, I just published my new book, Intro to Astrology. Here it is. This is the book that you have been asking me to write, and my audience has been asking me to write for about 5 years now. And it's putting together all the courses and the workshops that I've ever done on astrology. How to do astrology. This is the first volume. This is all about the big three. That's your sun, your moon, and your rising. And we go into it. And so a little bit later, when we're talking about what it's like to have a Gemini moon natally, we're going to go over that. So I'm going to give you a little sneak peek inside. It's just being offered right now on Amazon. It's the perfect stocking stuffer if you want to support small business this Christmas. This is such a great book. I did all of the graphic designs myself on the front as well as inside. We'll give you a little sneak peek inside. And the link to this will be in the description. Thank you so much for all of your feedback on these videos, as well as what you want to hear from me and see from me. I love doing these moon forecasts, the new moon and the full moon, and then giving other astrological videos in between as well. We will be getting into the astrology of 2025 soon. And that leads me to talk about this full moon in Gemini at 23 degrees. I love how the cosmos are always coaching us to step into the energies, become the next best version of ourselves. And this full moon is no exception. Let me tell you about the astrology of this full moon. It is conjunct Jupiter. Jupiter is currently retrograde in Gemini. And so the full moon is right next to Jupiter in Gemini. This full moon is also squaring Neptune at 27 degrees Pisces. This is so huge because this full moon is also squaring the nodes. And the nodes are still in Aries and Libra, and Neptune is just about to enter into Aries. That'll be happening at the end of March of 2025. That's a whole new era, just like Pluto stepping into Aquarius is a whole new era as well. So Neptune going into Aries, and the fact that there's a square to this full moon to Neptune and also a square to the Aries North Node on this particular full moon is just so poetic. It's such a reminder to embrace the energies that are coming from the cosmos. And what I interpret this as is when Neptune does go into Aries in March of 2025, this is all about ego death. This is all about all of these feelings we've been having about getting our poop in a group. And that's why I wrote this book, this first book here of shadow work. This is another spectacular, amazing book that is available on Amazon as well. Link is also in bio. How to use astrology with shadow work. So I teach you how to do that. And the cosmos have been encouraging us to do this for quite some time. And this full moon is no exception. It's time for us to get honest about our triggers. That's what shadow work is. It's looking at, holy, that just triggered me. Taking a step back, being the observer of the trigger, and then moving through that emotion. Because if you continue to get triggered, knee-jerk reaction, knee-jerk reaction, knee-jerk reaction, well, it's just going to keep showing up. Different places, different faces. It'll be the same thing for years and years until we actually say, okay, that is actually a trigger. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look at it this time and I'm actually going to walk through it. And this is what the shadow workbook that I wrote really helps you do with your astrology birth chart. And that's what I'm sensing with this full moon at 23 degrees of Gemini. We've got it conjunct Jupiter, and Jupiter will also be changing signs next year. There's so much going on in 2025. That's an upcoming video that I will be doing on the astrology of 2025, and it is big energy for 2025. Absolutely. With Jupiter moving out of Gemini into Cancer, that'll be happening in June. And with Neptune moving out of Pisces, where it's been for since 2011, and then on March 30th, which is right when there's an eclipse as well, going into Aries. So just to backtrack a little bit, the nodes have been on the Aries and Libra axis. The North Node has been in Aries. And so collectively, we've all been encouraged to embrace the Aries energies. And we're talking about the high vibing Aries energies. And that's all about being an entrepreneur, being a leader, being a pioneer, doing it for yourself, doing it not for the other, doing it for yourself, getting independent, all of those things, all of that warrior spirit, that Aries energy. We've all been encouraged to do that. And some people have been feeling this, and we've been talking about it on these moon forecasts. And we've been talking about it with coaching with the cosmos and embracing the transits that are going on in the skies. And we're noticing that we need to be independent and we need to take responsibility for ourselves. If we're going to stay stuck in knee-jerk reactions and triggers, that's also a choice. And but it's going to be on repeat. And we're noticing that this is the work that we are being called to do. That is so Aries. That is high vibing Aries energy, because Aries is all about self-awareness. It's all about being aware of self. And so we've all been encouraged to get into this high vibing Aries energy with the North Node in Aries. We're at 2 degrees, so we're just about out of Aries, and it'll be going into Pisces for an 18-month period. And so that will be another video as well. Actually, I did already do that video on the nodes in Pisces and Virgo. Go back and look at that, but we will be talking about that all year because the nodes are always our North Star in our natal birth chart, as well as where they are in the skies right now. And so the fact that this full moon in Gemini is squaring Neptune and squaring the nodes in Aries, it's all about preparing us for this energy of Neptune into Aries, which happens on an eclipse at the end of March of 2025. It's all about the ego death. So for those of you that think of the word ego and you're thinking covert narcissist, yes, okay, that's one form of the ego. But the ego, for a lot of other people, we interpret it as it making us small. It scares us. The ego is always trying to make us small, right? The ego makes us afraid of things. So we say, oh no, I'm not going to try that. That seems too scary. Oh no, I'm used to it this way. So I'm just going to stay doing what I'm doing. The ego protects us. It's not to poo-poo the ego. It's not that we don't need any ego, but we need to be observers of our ego, which is the observers of shadow work, observers of triggers. We need to step into the observer role, which is what the cosmos have been encouraging us to do for quite a while now. And so this full moon might be a little bit shocking for some people that are living in triggers. They are living in their traumas. They are living in the repeated knee-jerk reactions because a full moon always illuminates in the heavens. It's always that illumination from the sky, the dark sky, that illuminates light where we cannot see the darkness. So we might see where we still need to work on ourselves. And it is about self. It is about self-awareness because with Neptune going into Aries, it's that shattering of the illusion that the rose-colored glasses that perhaps many of us have been wearing with Neptune going through Pisces. Neptune loves being in Pisces. It's ruled by Pisces, but it can be very foggy. It can be very vague. It can be a lot of confusion. And with Neptune going into Aries at the end of March next year, that's going to be a whole new energetic of waking the F up. So No more confusion. It's about yourself now, and it's about taking radical responsibility for self. I say bring it on. I say I am a hardcore Aries personally, and I love all things self-awareness. Although I write the books on how to become step into your self-awareness. I love it. This full moon's going to illuminate that for people. Where are you on the self-awareness scale? And with it being in Gemini, Gemini is all about your communication. Gemini is all it's ruled by Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So Mercury is the neutral planet. And it's the way we think and it's the way we speak. And have you been changing the way that you're thinking? Have you been having mindset shifts? That's what doing shadow work helps you do. It helps you rewire your brain so that you don't react. You're not into that knee-jerk reaction mode. Gemini is the great thinker. Gemini is the great communicator, the great writer. Gemini rules the internet, all things that are written online. Gemini is when Gemini is in the moon sign, or when the moon has Gemini, it is the great trickster. And I'm going to read from my book now because this book goes through all 12 sun signs in depth. This book goes through all 12 moon signs and all 12 rising signs in depth. So I've put a little marker here to show you what it's like to have a Gemini moon in your natal birth chart. So here's a little look inside my beautiful book with room for journal prompts. This is what it's like to have a Gemini moon. If you are a Gemini moon person, this is your moon energetic. Or if your moon is in the third house, so it could be in a different sign, and I go through all of that in this book. Your moon might be a different sign, but if it's placed in the third house, it's like Gemini moon energy. So if you were born with a Gemini moon, or if your moon is in the third house, you are a magical being with trickster charm who is accustomed to bending rules, breaking norms, and jobs in the realm of education and teaching. So lots of teachers out there have Gemini moons, and I know who you are. I know I've seen your charts. You are a rule breaker. When this trickster energy is used well, it's fun and magical to be in your presence. You came here to rock people's worlds and wake them up to see things differently. You use satire well, and you know how to highlight issues to let people know what is and what is not working. You are ruled by Mercury, and you don't like intensity or staying too serious or too heavy in your emotions. You are not a fan of dealing with emotional blocks and triggers, and this might be a lifelong journey for you to embrace and to deal with. So isn't that just what I was talking about? And then for Gemini moon sign, if you get the book, it talks to you about embracing your Gemini moon. And as you can see, I go through the Gemini sun, we go through the Gemini rising. So we go deep into all 12 of the sun, moon, and rising signs in my new Introduction to Astrology book. But back to Gemini moon. It's all about those intense emotions and people with this particular moon. If you're born with a Gemini moon, staying in really intense emotions is extremely uncomfortable for Gemini moon people. It is extremely uncomfortable to do the shadow work. It's not your favorite. You like to have that fun, trickster, laughing, don't get too serious energy. That's the energy that the Gemini moon people feel throughout their life. And it is a lifelong journey for them to say, okay, wait a minute. It's time for me to take this a little bit serious. And if I do use my Mercury ruled moon, I know how to be neutral. Mercury is the great neutral planet, and you can be an observer when you embrace that Mercury energy. But often when you're born with this moon, it's hard to use that energy and not completely joke about it. It's like they're the great joke. Everything's a big joke, right? So watch yourself this full moon. Are you embracing that kind of energy, or Are you embracing the high vibe of the Gemini moon energy, which is ruled by Mercury? I can definitely, and Mercury's in retrograde, so you can definitely re-look. Whenever there's a planet in retrograde, it's all those RE words, re-look, reanalyze. And I can be a great observer of what's going on and seeing the fact that I am actually in knee-jerk reaction mode and I can rewire my brain. Gemini is very intelligent. Gemini can use that energy to rewire the brain. And I feel like this full moon at 23 Gemini on the weekend, another weekend full moon, is really helping us get ready for Neptune going into Aries. Are you ready to be independent in your emotions, not to blame anybody? Are you ready for what Neptune in Aries is going to bring? This is going to be ego death. Felt very strongly at the very beginning, whenever a planet is at 0 degrees of the planet. So it'll be at 0 degrees of Aries on March 30th for a while. And that's that you'll feel the new energy of Neptune and Aries saying it's time to take radical responsibility for yourself. It's time to stop blaming others for your feelings and taking radical responsibility for your feelings. It's time to stop the blame game and projecting onto others. And the cosmos have been encouraging us to do this for a while and to get honest and become an observer of our feelings. And yes, even the ugly feelings that we're ashamed of. And that's what shadow work is. It's reclaiming, to use another RE word, reclaiming where we have been avoiding or where we have been completely not even looking at and not taking any responsibility for saying, yes, this is something that I am repeating and it's not serving me anymore. And I'm going to rewire my brain. I'm running on a program here. I'm running on a program. And I think that this full moon is going to illuminate for so many people where we are running on programs that we have been on repeat for a long, long time. And it's getting us ready to step into our independent leadership roles that Aries has been offering us for quite a while now with the North Node in Aries. We're at 2 degrees now. It's going to be switching early next year into the Pisces and Virgo axis. Go back and watch that video for more of an in-depth look at what those energetics will feel like. But a full moon always, no matter what sign it's in, always illuminates in the sky the end of a cycle. Where do we need to close one door so that we can open another? What has manifested in our life, especially from 6 months ago when there was a Gemini new moon? You can look back if you are a fan of writing a moon journal and intentions at a new moon, which I highly recommend doing. You always look back 6 months ago. What were the intentions that you set under the Gemini new moon? What has come to fruition now at the Gemini full moon? Because this is the end of that 6 month cycle. And it has to do with Gemini related things, right? Writing, speaking, something online, maybe even a car. Gemini rules cars. Gemini rules your siblings and your cousins and those friends that feel like sisters. Gemini rules writing projects, education projects, school, all those things that we set into motion 6 months ago. What has come to fruition now? It has been manifested. It's like you plant the seed at a new moon, and then 6 months later, you see what has grown. And so is that cycle completely over? Are we completely closing that door and moving to another? Or have we come to a culmination point at some point now? And maybe we need to build more. That's up for you to decide. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look through the 12 zodiac signs. We're going to look through the houses, the 12 houses and you can interpret this with your rising sign. So you'll need to know your rising sign. Now, again, I teach you how to find your rising sign. This is a beginner's book, but it's also There's so much knowledge in here that I've been sharing in my courses and my workshops for years that I've put it all in here to teach. This is for beginners and advanced astrologers alike for you to truly embrace and embody your natal birth chart. And so I go through the rising signs in this book as well. And so that's what we're going to be doing now. Where does Gemini fall in your natal birth chart? You'll know by knowing your rising sign. And so we're going to go through the 12 houses now, and we're going to take a look at what this full moon is bringing to fruition for you to take an honest look at. Okay, so Gemini, does Gemini fall in your first house? That would mean that you're a Gemini rising person. Okay, this is Gemini in your first. What has grown? What is the end of the cycle for you? And it could be any area of your life, but of course could be very Gemini-like. School, education, writing project, or it could be a complete mindset shift. Did you put that into your new moon intentions 6 months ago? That, I really need to do the shadow work. I really need to rewire my brain. And something has come to fruition, to something has manifested now 6 months later, and it could be anything. When it rules your first house, that's your identity, that's your whole life. That could be like a weight loss like a whole new, you've gone back to the gym and now 6 months later you've had a huge weight loss. It could be anything when it falls into your first house. I always say the first house is like your cosmic business card. It's not your soul, it's not your emotions, but it's who you're showing up as. So who are you showing up as? And did you change your mind? Did you say, no, I want something different? And now 6 months later, there is something different for you to show up as. That's first house energy. And so that's if Gemini is in your first. Does Gemini fall into your second house? Well, the second house is all about worth. So your self-worth, as well as the worth in your bank account, the money that you are making. So what's shown up for you? Did you set the intention to get a raise at work, to work on your self-worth, to step up and know your worth? And then what do you know? The money started flowing more easily because money is an energy exchange after all. And once you know your worth, you become more open to the wealth coming in. So maybe you have a whole new bank account thanks to what happened 6 months ago, and you set those intentions to make more money. And it's all about Gemini. So maybe you went to school. Gemini is the all about education, and it's all about learning, and it's all about writing projects and speaking and how you think. And so maybe you started plugging away at that book that you've always wanted to write. And now the money's flowing in because you've written the book. Something has happened regarding your worth and your worthiness and something to do with your bank account. So something has shown up, or maybe you need to close that door and you need to recognize I am worthy of more. I am going to set the intention to work on my worthiness and to make more income. So the full moon is illuminating what has or has not shown up when it comes to all of those second house worthiness subjects. Does Gemini rule your third? This is where Gemini belongs. Gemini's at home. Gemini does very well in the third house. So what has shown up for you? Did you set your intentions 6 months ago under the Gemini new moon? What was going on in your life 6 months ago? And did you set intentions for regarding third house Gemini things? This is all things like cousins and friendships that feel like cousins and best friends. This is about your siblings. This is about a car or transportation, like a scooter or a bike or a car or the third house, I always call it the junk drawer of astrology because it's so many things. But, if you were to say it's one thing, if you are to say that the third house is one thing, it's your communication style. Maybe you're showing up differently. Maybe you're speaking up for yourself. Maybe you need to do all those things. Maybe you need a new car, a new bike. Maybe you need new friends that feel like family. And it's this full moon is illuminating. You know what? This is what's missing. This is what's missing in my life. I need some sisters, some soul sisters. I need new transportation. I need to start a new education program. I need to go back to school. The full moon is illuminating what has come to fruition, what has manifested, or the full moon is illuminating this is what's missing in this area of my life, and I need to give it a rethink, especially with Gemini, with Mercury in retrograde. You need to give it a rethink and reanalyze this area of your life. It's all the third house stuff. So give it a rethink, give it a relook. Maybe some things have come, maybe you did get a car, but you need to go back to school. So it's all of those things, those third house things that the full moon is illuminating, what has shown up or what's missing. Does Gemini rule your fourth house? The full moon is illuminating how far you've come, the end of that cycle, or what's missing in this area of your life. And it has to do with fourth house things. The fourth house is your house, your home, your property. It's also your mother wounds, your lineage, family stuff. So the full moon's illuminating. Did you set intentions 6 months ago? I need to move. I need a new house. And so now, at this time of the full moon in Gemini, after setting those intentions and planting those seeds 6 months ago, maybe you're moving this weekend. Maybe. Or maybe it's gotten to the point where this full moon is illuminating, you need to move. And you've always known it and you felt the niggling, but it's like you actually have to move now. So, or, you've actually got to talk to your mom about that thing. Or those family issues have really gotten out of hand and now you've got to deal with it. The full moon is illuminating what has manifested or what needs to be start what you need to do. Maybe you need to close the door. Maybe you need to end something. Maybe you need to look for new housing. It's all the fourth house stuff, and the full moon is illuminating it for you. What has manifested, or what's the new that needs to come into your life when it comes to all those fourth house things. Does Gemini rule your fifth house? The fifth house is the fun house, and Gemini loves being fun, and Gemini loves being funny. Mercury is very funny. Um, so yeah, what has creatively, the fifth house is all creative projects. It's art, it's music, it's dancing, it's fun. It is very artistic and it is very creative. So if Gemini is in your fifth house natally, it's time for you to look, okay, is there a project that the full moon is illuminating? Okay, now that's done. You did that thing. You did the beautiful art project or the exciting new project that you were working on. Maybe it was at school, maybe you do online work. It's now ended, okay? So now the full moon is illuminating what you've manifested. It's also children. So maybe you're pregnant. Maybe you're having that baby. Maybe you already have children and 6 months ago at the Gemini new moon, you set the intention to have a deeper relationship with your children or to get back in touch with your children if you were estranged, this sort of thing. The full moon is illuminating the cycle that has ended, what is being manifested, or it's showing you what's missing. The full moon is very bright in that dark sky, and it's showing you this is what's missing, the fun, the creativity, the relationship with your children, or I want to have children. What is missing regarding all those fun, creative, beautiful things. So what has manifested or what's missing? The full moon's going to illuminate that for you. Does Gemini rule your sixth house? That's your health house. So maybe 6 months ago, you wrote the intentions at that new moon to start a new healthy new program. Go back to the gym, start eating healthier. And so now the full moon is illuminating. Look what you manifested, you know? You reached your weight loss goals. Your blood sugar is great now. Your hormones are in balance. Maybe the full moon is illuminating how far you've come on your health journey. The sixth house is also about animals, pets. So maybe you got it, maybe you wanted a new pet, you got a new pet, you're getting a new pet. Sixth house is what you do every single day. So at work, yes. What are your work daily tasks at work? Yes, it is a work house, but it's also at home. What do you do on the daily to take care of yourself, to take care of this vessel, this human vessel, as well as our mental health? It's all things health. And what do you do on the daily to take care of yourself? The sixth house can be very boring because it's all those things that you should just plug away at daily. Boring, boring, boring. But, you know, it's those daily tasks. Those are the habits that can completely change your life. So the full moon is illuminating what you've manifested regarding your health. You've come so far. You've balanced the hormones. You've lost the weight. Your back doesn't hurt anymore. That chronic condition, those chronic headaches are gone. The full moon is illuminating that. Or the full moon is illuminating what's missing. And it has to do with perhaps you need to start that health routine. It doesn't have to mean a health crisis, but this full moon might be illuminating for you. You know what? I have got to take better care of myself physically, emotionally, spiritually. It doesn't have to be this big crisis. It might be. It might be the full moon, as we all know. The hospitals are full on full moons. Car accidents happen on full moons. Doesn't matter what sign it's in. The full moon has that energy. But when it's in your sixth house, the full moon is illuminating how far you've come. Now you're at the end of that cycle, or it's showing you what's missing because the full moon is so bright in the darkness and you haven't been able to see it until perhaps now. Does Gemini rule your seventh house? This is the relationship house. And so it's like it's your spouse, it's your business partners, it's your best friends, it's also those open enemies. And you know they're your enemies. So if Gemini is in your seventh, the full moon is illuminating, you know what, maybe 6 months ago you set the intention. You set the intention, I want a new hubby. I want a new best friend. I want a new business partner. I want people in my life that are soul family, this sort of thing. And now maybe you're getting married. You might be getting married this weekend if you have Gemini in the seventh. You might meet a new friend that will become like a soul sister. There might be an open enemy that you know you need to make boundaries with. All that stuff. The full moon is illuminating how far you've come in the seventh house. Maybe you're married and you knew 6 months ago your marriage was in trouble. Okay. And so you set the intention like, we need to really work at this. So 6 months later, at the Gemini new full moon in your seventh, the full moon is illuminating how far you've come. Look at this. When you planted those seeds 6 months ago, you've been working at it. Look what's happened now. So the full moon is illuminating what has manifested when it comes to those closest relationships in your life, or the full moon is illuminating what is missing when it comes to those close relationships. And maybe, just maybe, one example is if Gemini rules your seventh, the full moon is illuminating. It's not that you're going to go off and get divorced. Maybe some of you will, but you're going to be like, you know what? There is something missing in my marriage, and it's time for us to start a new cycle. So that's what the full moon does. It shows you how far you've come in this area of your life, especially with those intentions you set 6 months ago. And it's also showing you what's missing. You couldn't see it before, it was in the dark, but now that full moon is so bright and it's shining the light for you. Does Gemini rule your eighth house? Okay, eighth house is the transformation house. You have transformed, or have you? The full moon is illuminating how far you've come since, especially 6 months ago. So at the full moon, at the new moon 6 months ago, you were to write your intentions in the Gemini with Gemini themes in the eighth house. So maybe you wanted to write that book because Gemini is the great writer. Maybe you wanted a complete mindset shift. You wanted to do the shadow work. You wanted to rewire your brain and stop the programming and create a new program of open-heartedness as opposed to knee-jerk reactions. Gemini is the great thinker. Gemini is an education program. So maybe you've taken an education program that has completely transformed you. But when it comes to eighth house things, it is the butterfly house. You couldn't go back to the caterpillar even if you wanted to. You are now a butterfly. You have completely transformed. The eighth house rules the phoenix rising from the ashes. You have, in fact, reached rock bottom. So there's nowhere else to go but up. It's that great transformation house, the death rebirth house. The eighth house is also a sex-related house. So perhaps you are celibate or you weren't celibate, all things to do with your sexual health, your intestines, the eighth house is all that stuff. So looking back 6 months ago, under that new moon in Gemini, what were the intentions you set? Well, the full moon is up there in the sky this weekend, illuminating how far you've come and what you've transformed. Eighth house is also taxes and group. It's a financial house. It's the money that you own with your spouse or the inheritance you make through family. So the full moon's illuminating all those things that have transformed. What has transformed when it comes to all those eighth house things, death, rebirth, sex, money, and or else what's missing? What's the transformation you need to make? What are those group financial issues that you need to put into place with your spouse? You need to pay off the taxes. What's missing with the eighth house stuff? It is transformational. It does promise to transform you. So if you're not happy with what the full moon is illuminating, and if you haven't manifested the transformation that you're hoping for, it's time to do that. Maybe there is a Gemini related project, something about writing or thinking, that you want to transform your life and it hasn't manifested at the time of this full moon. That's okay. The full moon is illuminating that you want that manifested in your life. Or perhaps it is illuminating what has already occurred, what has already transformed your life. And that's the end of that cycle. And now it's time for another one. Does Gemini rule your ninth house? Okay. This is all things like long distance travel, education, learning, teaching, foreigners, foreign lands, and it's also your faith. It is what do you believe? So if you're a religious person or if you're a spiritual person, what is your faith? What do you know to be true? The Gemini full moon is illuminating how far you've come. You put something into place 6 months ago. Hopefully you wrote down those new moon intentions 6 months ago. And it was all those things. Maybe you wanted to finally do that overseas trip. Maybe you're going on the trip this weekend. It could literally be that literal. But it could also be like, you know what, 6 months ago, I decided, I'm going to go back to school and maybe the education program has started now, or maybe you finally got accepted into that program. Maybe it's about your faith and maybe you knew you needed to leave your religion and search for a faith system that works for you. So maybe the full moon is illuminating how far you've come with all those things. Or maybe the full moon is illuminating what is missing. Do you lack faith? Do you lack your education where you want it to be? Do you lack the trips and the foreign travel that you were hoping for? The full moon's going to illuminate what you couldn't see in the dark. So it's not an opportunity to beat yourself up. It's an opportunity to get deeper into your faith, to get deeper into those dreams of travel and education, and to know things. When it's in the ninth house, your deepest faith is to know. It's not to believe, it's to know. Okay, does Gemini rule your 10th house. This is the top of the chart. 10th house is always the top of the chart. It's what people see. It's a title change from Ms. to Mrs. It's a title change from associate to CEO. It's it's your career. It's your father. It's your father issues, father figures, the boss, right? It's all those things. And you can't hide it. It's up there at the top. So something has happened. The full moon is illuminating how far you've come in your career. The full moon is illuminating what's going on with your dad. The full moon is illuminating what's going on with a father figure in your life. Maybe you're becoming a father. It could be as literal as you are welcoming a child and you are a father this weekend. It could be as literal as that. The full moon might also be illuminating what is missing in the 10th house for you. So the full moon illuminates what we can't see in the dark. And so you might be not happy with where your career is at. And the full moon is illuminating that for you, not to beat yourself up, but to illuminate, okay, I know that this is something that I need to work on. The full moon might be illuminating those father issues that you have been avoiding. La la la, I don't want to talk about it. And it's time. It's time to finally talk to your dad or have closure with your father issues or with a boss, a CEO type in your life, somebody that holds authority over you. Or maybe you want to be holding authority in your life. The full moon illuminates what's missing when it comes to 10th house stuff. And it also illuminates how far you've come and what you've manifested. Does Gemini rule your 11th house? Okay, the 11th house is the greatest good for all. It rules the internet and online groups. It rules friendships. It is the great water bearer house, so it's the humanitarian. So 6 months ago, did you set intentions on all those kinds of things? Maybe I want a new friendship group, like I do. I really want that. So is the full moon illuminating now? You got those friends, you did it, that cycle's over. Great. Now it's like I can do other things, you know? Is the full moon illuminating an online group that you join and it's completely been everything you were hoping for? And you set those intentions maybe 6 months ago under the Gemini new moon? Or did you set the intention about an online program, something to do with the internet, something to do with computers, something to do with technology, an invention? 6 months later now at the full moon in Gemini. And is it Gemini related things, things to do with the internet, online communication, writing, speaking. Maybe you're launching your ebook online right now. That's so Gemini in in the 11th house, right? So the full moon always illuminates what you've manifested since the last 6 months, since the Gemini new moon 6 months ago. It always illuminates the cycle that is now closing. What has manifested in your life with all those 11th house stuff? Or the full moon is illuminating what's missing. What is missing in your life? And it doesn't have to be a big crisis, but maybe it's that deep feeling of like, yeah, I really do want community. I really do want friends. I do want to belong to a group. And the full moon might be illuminating that for you. It's not to poo-poo and to beat yourself up, but it's illuminating what's missing, perhaps. Could be a crisis. It always can be a crisis when it's a full moon, but it doesn't have to be, and it might just be showing you what's missing regarding those 11th house things. Last but not least, does Gemini rule your 12th? Your 12th house. So this is the final house. This is the ending house. Okay, if Gemini rules you natally in the 12th, this is where you let go of things. So Gemini is the great thinker, the great writer. Maybe you need to let go of that thought pattern. Maybe you need to let go of that knee-jerk reaction, that program that is not serving you. The 12th house is all things letting go. It's also your dream space, your dreams at night. It also rules all those institutions like hospitals and rehab centers and orphanages and the prison systems. The 12th house is also addictions. And addictions are everything from booze and drugs to food and Netflix. So, and everything in between. So, the full moon is illuminating how far you've come. Maybe 6 months ago at the new moon in Gemini, you wrote the intentions. I want to stop drinking. I want to stop sugar. I want to end this thing that is no longer serving me. So 6 months later at the Gemini full moon, what is the full moon illuminating for you in the sky? You've come so far. This is what you manifested. You did it. You stopped the booze, you stopped the sugar or something like that. Maybe. Maybe the full moon is illuminating this thing that you've manifested and it's ending. Maybe you have to let go, let goddess, and you knew it. 6 months ago, you knew you had to let go. You had to forgive. The 12th house is all about forgiveness. It is otherworldly. The 12th house, it is the great God energy as it also is in the ninth house. Ninth house and 12th house are the great God energy. And but the 12th house is all about letting go, letting goddess. And maybe 6 months ago you knew you needed to let go. And maybe it was just all made up in your head and you had to get over the thing, right? So is the full moon illuminating? You did it. You let go. It's over. Close it. Let's move on. Or is the full moon illuminating what is missing with all those 12 house things for you? Is the full moon illuminating? You've got to let it go. You've got to stop doing the thing that is addictive. The full moon will illuminate what has manifested or what is missing. And for you, it's all those 12th house things. So be honest with yourself. And again, it's Gemini related for all of us, no matter what house placement it's in. It's got that Gemini flavor, that trickster charm. Geminis are very smart. Geminis like to talk. Geminis are extremely intelligent, love school, okay, love to learn, love to teach. And when it's in the moon, it's all those things with your emotional wellness. So that's why so many Gemini moon people are teachers. Lots of elementary school teachers and keeping things light and fun. That's a Gemini moon person for sure. So what's being illuminated at the time of this full moon in Gemini for you? We've just gone through all the 12 house placements. What's being illuminated with that Gemini flavor for you? It's all about what you put into motion, what you intended 6 months ago at the Gemini new moon. And now that it's 6 months later, we've got the Gemini full moon illuminating what has manifested for you with that Gemini flavor moon. Or the full moon is illuminating what's missing with that Gemini flavor in that house placement. So we've just gone over that for all the 12 house placements. Let me know in the comments what has or has not shown up for you this weekend with this Gemini full moon. Now I'm just shuffling the cards. We're going to ask the tarot for a card on this 23-degree Gemini full moon that's happening on December 15th, depending on where you are on the planet. It's this weekend. It is a weekend full moon in Gemini. Lots of fun to be had. A Gemini moon person is very funny, has that trickster charm, definitely seeks to break the norms. It's going to be a lot of those sort of vibes this weekend. Let's stay in that high vibing Gemini moon energy. And let's use the guidance from the full moon to take an honest look at what has manifested since the 6 months ago at the Gemini new moon, and maybe perhaps what is missing when it comes to our Gemini house placement. The full moon is so graciously illuminating for us what might be missing and what we might need to embrace for the next cycle. So here we go. Let's ask the tarot. What is this Gemini full moon at 23 degrees? Conjunct Jupiter, squaring Neptune, and squaring the nodes. The nodes are at 2 degrees Aries, Libra. We're just about into Pisces. And this full moon is squaring the nodes. So let's ask the tarot right now. What's the card? King of Cups upright. We love this. Look at him. So non-gender specific, the King of Cups upright knows his emotions. He is emotionally intelligent. He, she, they is emotionally intelligent and sits on their throne with the crown on their head, knowing their emotions. Emotional intelligence is the name of the game, and that is exactly what I was saying at the beginning of this full moon forecast with the conjunction to Jupiter, the square to Neptune, the square to the nodes. This cosmic energy is encouraging all of us to prepare ourselves for Neptune going into Aries at the end of March, right after the eclipse. It's going to be a lot of energy, and the cosmic signature of that is all about the ego death. So again, not to poo-poo the ego altogether. The ego is always trying to protect us. But do we get stuck in the ego, being so scared to take the next step in life? Do we get stuck in our ego and staying small and not standing up for yourself? Yourself is ruled by Aries. The North Node has been in Aries. We're almost done with all of those lessons, trying to stand up for self, trying to be self-aware and take radical responsibility for self. And so with Neptune going into Aries in March, right after that eclipse, that is ego death energy. And that is advising all of us and encouraging all of us to embody self-awareness, being our own leader, being our own pioneer, knowing what is and is not serving us, not at all to be in shame for having triggers and having knee-jerk reactions, but to be the observer of those things and to say that this is no longer serving me and I will not stay small and I will not feel any kind of shame for speaking my truth and being aware of this is who I am. This is the energy that I bring to this world. This is the light that I bring to this world so that we can step out of the ego and open up the hearts. And the problem is, so many of us are programmed in this world, and it's through our education system, it's through our religions, through our families, through our peers, you name it. We get programmed to be afraid and to not embrace who we truly are and to stay small and not say the thing and not step forward. And these energies from the cosmos have been encouraging all of us to be proud of who we are and what we stand for, saying the thing, doing the thing, being like the high vibing Aries, being the leader and being the hero of your own life. That is all Aries energetics. And then with Neptune going into Aries at the end of March, it's going to be all new era energy, just like with Pluto into Aquarius, that's all new era energy. When these outer planets move into new signs and hit that 0 degree mark of the sign, it's all that new era energy. And that's exactly what this is. New moon is encouraging all of us to get honest about. Be like the King of Cups. Own your energies. Be honest about your feelings. Stand up for yourself. Say the thing. Do the thing. Sit on your throne. Be emotionally aware and open up the heart, because the ego, if we're stuck in the ego, it means we're stuck in the head and it means we're not living from the heart. And I feel that the energetics of the cosmos, for sure, over the last 5 years, have been encouraging all of us to slow down, take an honest look at ourselves, stop blaming others, stop projecting onto others, getting out of the ego that is on programs, constant loops of being afraid of looking at the real issues and taking an honest look at our shadows and doing the shadow work. And when we do, we will also sit on our throne and be emotionally aware and not be afraid of our emotions and being in charge of our emotions as opposed to our emotions being in charge of us. And again, if you would like to learn astrology from me, if you like the way that I teach astrology, you are not going to want to miss my astrology books. This one was on shadow work, how to do shadow work and astrology. That's what the cosmos have been encouraging us to do for a long time now. And this full moon is no exception. And then this new book, they're both available on Amazon. I'll share the links in the description, is how to embrace your natal birth chart. And that's what I do in these moon forecasts, is I encourage you to look at the house placement of where the moons are transiting so that you can know where to set the intentions at a new moon, and you can know where to look at your what has manifested or what is showing that is missing for you. The full moon always lets you know. And so when you get a hold of your birth chart and you get a hold of information like this, you know how to work with the cosmos and the poetry of the planets. So I hope this video has served you. I'm wishing all of you a blessed full moon in Gemini this weekend. In the comments below, let me know, where does Gemini fall in your natal birth chart? How are you feeling these energies? Are you feeling all this Aries energy with the nodes finishing up in Aries, Libra, and getting ready for Neptune into Aries? Are you feeling the energy already? Because I know I am. Let me know in the comments. And again, happy full moon. All my best.